Distant stars glimmered over the crimson horizon of Mars, a silent witness to eons of forgotten history. The winds whispered across barren plains, carrying dust that had not felt the touch of water in millions of years. Amid this desolation, something unnatural lay half-buried beneath the ochre sands, angular, precise, unlike anything nature could have formed. For decades, humans had gazed at Mars through telescopes and rovers, imagining possibilities, dreaming of footprints yet to be made. But now, for the first time, an anomaly beckoned with intent. Its surface shimmered faintly under the harsh sunlight, hinting at a sophistication that defied every expectation. Scientists and explorers approached cautiously, aware that they were standing before a relic older than human memory, older even than the first whispers of life on Earth. What civilization could have conceived such a construct? And what message, if any, had it been waiting to deliver for millions of years? Every sensor they deployed recorded something extraordinary. Energy readings pulsed in subtle patterns, like a heartbeat buried in stone. The artifacts seemed to acknowledge their presence, though silently, leaving only questions and a deep, unsettling sense of wonder. In that moment, the boundary between history and possibility blurred. Mars was no longer a barren canvas. It was a repository of secrets, a place where intelligence had once risen and perhaps still lingered, patiently awaiting discovery. The question echoed in the minds of those present. What if civilizations existed on Mars before Earth? What stories had been lost to time? And what might humanity learn if it dared to awaken what had been waiting silently, beneath the dust and silence, for millions of years? The anomaly was first detected by Ars-9, an unmanned rover scanning the Vales Marineris Canyon system. At first glance, the data looked like a glitch, an unusual pattern of light reflection from a subsurface cavity. But upon closer analysis, it wasn't random. It was geometric. Within days, the world's space agencies turned their attention to the signal. The coordinates pointed to a region thought to be geologically dead, a wasteland of red rock and shadow. Yet the readings pulsed with rhythm, faint, deliberate, like a language encoded in silence. Months later, Ars-10 landed near the site. Its cameras revealed something no one had anticipated. A buried structure, massive, angular, and perfectly aligned with Mars' magnetic field. The formation extended kilometers underground, its edges too precise to be natural. When the rover's lasers brushed across its surface, they reflected patterns, fractals, repeating endlessly, as if built by design rather than chance. The material itself wasn't metallic, nor stone. It was something in between, unknown to Earth's chemistry, neither corroded nor eroded, as if time itself had been denied permission to touch it. The first images were broadcast globally, across news networks and social media. Humanity watched in awe and disbelief. Some saw proof of an ancient civilization. Others dismissed it as geological coincidence. But for the scientists analyzing the data, one thing was undeniable. This was not random. And then came the moment that changed everything. Ars-10's drill touched the structure's surface, and the rover went dark. No signal, no response, just silence. At mission control, tension rose. Systems rebooted, commands were resent, but the rover's cameras stayed offline. Until just before the feed went black, a final frame appeared, a brief flash of symbols, etched into the darkness like glowing script, pulsing once, twice, and gone. Those symbols didn't match any known language, but they matched something else. Deep within Earth's oldest myths, Sumerian tablets, cave carvings, and the sacred geometry of ancient civilizations, the same patterns appeared. It was as if Mars had written to us long before we ever learned to read. When the signal from Ars-10 vanished, it wasn't treated as a simple malfunction. It became an obsession. NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, and private agencies like Helioscorp formed a joint task force, codenamed Project Osiris, dedicated to decoding what Mars was trying to tell them. At first, it was about the data, radiation levels, magnetic interference, energy spikes, but soon, the science began to blur into mythology. Dr. Elena Voren, the lead xenogeologist on the project, noticed something extraordinary. The pattern emitted from beneath Mars' surface corresponded with Fibonacci ratios, the mathematical code that defines the spiral of galaxies, shells. DNA, nature doesn't write with intention, she whispered in one declassified audio file. But this feels written. To understand, they had to go deeper. So, they sent Ars-11. Unlike its predecessors, it wasn't just a rover. It was equipped with ground-penetrating resonance tech, able to listen to the planet itself. What it heard changed everything. Beneath the Martian crust lay hollow tunnels, chambers, and vast caverns resonating at a near-perfect frequency -432 Hz. The same tone ancient civilizations on Earth used in chants and rituals believed to connect with the universe. Coincidence? Maybe. But as the data streamed in, one thing became clear. Mars was not just dead. It was sleeping. And then, something else happened. The walls of the buried structure began to emit heat. Not enough to melt rock, but enough to register on sensors. When the rover's camera focused on a carved relief, a mural of some kind, shapes began to reveal themselves under the red dust. Humanoid figures, but not human. They had elongated skulls, intricate markings, and what looked like star maps radiating from their hands. The ancient carvings showed two planets, Mars and another, smaller, blue-green sphere. They were connected by streams of energy, or migration. The implications shattered every established timeline. Had Mars once harbored intelligent life? And if so, did they come to Earth? Dr. Voron's team found further anomalies. Traces of isotopes inside the site dated back not millions, but hundreds of millions of years, older than any known civilization, older than humanity itself. Governments ordered silence. Public data feeds were rerouted. Official statements labeled the discovery as a sensor malfunction. But behind locked doors, the investigation continued because someone, or something, wanted to stay buried. Until a whisper emerged from the static, a low, rhythmic pulse coming through deep space radio channels. It wasn't random noise. It was repeating the same 3 beats, over and over, as if counting down. When fragments of the Ars-11 transmission leaked, the world didn't react with curiosity. It reacted with chaos. Someone inside Project Osiris had released a 22-second clip, a shaky visual feed, showing the glowing walls, the humanoid carvings, and that haunting pulse that echoed like a heartbeat. The footage went viral within hours. Hashtags like #MarsEcho, #AncientSignal, and #BeforeEarth flooded social media. For the first time in decades, every screen on the planet was tuned to the same mystery. Governments scrambled to regain control. NASA called it a deep fake. ESA claimed data distortion, but the world had already seen too much, and people were connecting dots faster than officials could erase them. Documentaries popped up overnight, comparing the Martian carvings with petroglyphs found in Australia, Peru, and Turkey. They matched, not perfectly, but close enough to ignite a wildfire of speculation for believers. It was proof for skeptics, a challenge for the powerful, a threat. Religious institutions fractured. Some declared the discovery divine, a sign that creation stretched far beyond Earth. Others condemned it, calling it a test of faith. The Vatican held a private emergency council. Leaked notes hinted at one chilling phrase written in Latin, non sumus primi. We are not the first. Meanwhile, world powers quietly mobilized. Private satellite networks began losing their connections near Mars orbit. Aerospace data feeds were mysteriously encrypted. And for the first time since the Cold War, multiple nations positioned deep space probes not for research, but surveillance. In the background, ordinary people began dreaming. Reports surfaced worldwide of synchronized visions, geometric landscapes, crimson skies, ancient structures rising from dust. Psychologists dismissed it as mass hysteria, but neural pattern scans from dream subjects showed something disturbing. Their brainwaves were resonating at 432, the same frequency the Martian tunnels emitted. It was as if Mars itself had started whispering to humanity through their sleep. Dr. Voron vanished around this time. Her colleagues claimed she was taken for questioning after leaking internal data, but her final message, found encrypted in her personal logs, said, "If they silence me, remember this, the message isn't about the past. It's about returning." The world held its breath, and on a quiet night 2 months later, an event occurred that shattered the last veil of disbelief. The red planet pulsed, visibly. Every telescope pointed at Mars recorded it, a faint but distinct flicker, spreading across its equator like lightning beneath the surface. It lasted less than a second, but that second changed history. The pulse that rippled across Mars that night did not end in silence. It marked the beginning of possession, not of the planet, but of the truth, and truth, in the hands of power, becomes a weapon. Within hours of the Martian pulse, an encrypted directive swept through military communication channels worldwide, all publicly available. Mars observation data was locked down. Space agencies were ordered to redirect their satellites, not for study, but for containment. The official explanation? Solar interference. The real reason? Fear. Project Osiris was no longer scientific, it was strategic. The United Nations formed a temporary council called the Interplanetary Preservation Authority, a polite name masking a quiet war for control. Each superpower wanted access to the Osiris data core. Each claimed international cooperation, but behind closed doors, digital espionage became rampant. Servers were breached, research logs wiped, drone footage replaced with doctored files. The scientists, once explorers of the unknown, now found themselves prisoners of politics. Dr. Rains, the mission commander, was reassigned to a classified facility. Dr. Kwan disappeared during a debriefing flight. Only fragments of their encrypted journals remained. In one, a line stood out: "The data is not about Mars, it's about us. The machine remembers what we've forgotten." Back on Earth, the public narrative shifted rapidly. News anchors mocked Martian mythologists. University professors were silenced with funding threats, and the leaked Osiris footage slowly vanished from the internet, every upload erased by invisible hands. But deletion is not the same as disappearance. The footage began reappearing on dark networks, stabilized, enhanced, analyzed frame by frame. Independent researchers discovered patterns within the wall carvings. Each curve, each intersection of the symbols formed coordinates, not random, but precise, pointing to Earth. One of those coordinates matched a site beneath Antarctica's ice shelf, where radar scans had long shown something unnatural, a massive, hexagonal structure buried deep below. Another set pointed to the Mariana Trench, and another to a magnetic anomaly in the Sahara Desert. It wasn't a message. It was a map. At the same time, energy spikes began appearing across the planet, invisible to most, but not to those watching closely. Power grids flickered in unison. Radio telescopes picked up faint rhythmic patterns that matched the pulse frequency recorded on Mars. It was as if the red planet and Earth were synchronizing. In underground control rooms, powerful men and women argued not about discovery, but about possession. Who owns history when it no longer belongs to humans? Who claims authority over knowledge that predates civilization? The United States called for isolation. China demanded cooperation. Private corporations offered to assist with decoding in exchange for patents on the technology. And in the chaos, something darker moved, an invisible network of intelligence operatives tasked with ensuring that the machine's true purpose never reached the public. Among them was an entity known only as Division 13. Unofficial, unacknowledged, untraceable. Its operatives began systematically hunting anyone with direct knowledge of the Osiris signal. They weren't just erasing files anymore. They were erasing memories. Entire teams of scientists reported blackouts, missing hours, and strange interference during deep sleep cycles. Brain scans revealed something horrifying. Neural patterns rewritten at the exact frequency as the Martian pulse. Whatever the machine was, it wasn't just observing. It was adapting. By the time the world realized what was happening, the line between control and chaos had already blurred. Humanity wasn't just uncovering its past anymore. It was being rewritten by it. Silence. Then, the hum. It began faintly, beneath the Antarctic ice. Sensors buried miles deep registered a low-frequency vibration identical to the Osiris pulse from Mars. At first, it was dismissed as tectonic noise, shifting ice, normal movement, but then the vibration repeated, precise, rhythmic, intentional. Within hours, satellites orbiting Earth began detecting a coordinated magnetic fluctuation, a pulse that traveled from Antarctica to the Pacific, then to the Sahara, and finally out into the void of space. Toward Mars. It wasn't random. It was a reply. The machine had called, and Earth was answering. Deep in a classified underground facility in Nevada, the surviving Osiris team gathered around a live feed from the Antarctic research site. The ice above the anomaly had begun to fracture in perfect concentric rings, not from heat, but from vibration. Something beneath the surface was waking up. Dr. Rains stared at the monitors, her voice trembling. It's not a relic, it's a system, and it's been waiting for us. Double quotes as the energy readings intensified. The chamber walls surrounding the machine began to glow faintly, not light, but reflected resonance, as though invisible waves were rippling through physical matter. Communication systems failed, magnetic compasses spun, drones fell from the sky. The machine wasn't emitting power, it was reshaping it. In orbit, satellites recorded bursts of electromagnetic energy radiating outward in perfect, geometric symmetry, like petals unfolding from a flower. Each burst formed intricate, lattice patterns before fading into the ionosphere. Mathematicians later found that the energy bursts matched the Fibonacci sequence, nature's code of growth and structure. It was as if the planet itself had begun to breathe. Meanwhile, on Mars, Osiris's remains flickered to life. Cameras, long since abandoned, recorded brief flashes across the dig site, lines of light moving across the soil in spirals, converging toward the buried machine. The same triangle within circle pattern reappeared, but now, it pulsed in rhythm with the signals on Earth. Two worlds, separated by millions of miles. Moving as one. The phenomenon triggered global panic. Flights grounded. Power grids overloaded. Governments denied everything. But the truth could no longer be hidden, because it was visible from space. Every telescope on Earth captured the same haunting sight, a massive aurora expanding around the planet, forming shapes no natural aurora ever could. Symbols, spirals, triangular geometries rotating slowly across the upper atmosphere, visible even in daylight. The planet itself had become part of the machine's design. As panic turned to chaos, strange anomalies appeared. Time-lapse cameras recorded clouds moving backward. Magnetic compasses pointed north one moment and south the next. Tides fluctuated without lunar influence. It wasn't just energy. Spacetime itself was being disturbed. Somewhere in the midst of the global blackout, Dr. Rains received an encrypted message from an untraceable source. The same encryption key used in the original Osiris transmission. It contained a single line of text. The machines were never separate, they were one system. Earth and Mars were the same experiment. The realization hit like a wave. Humanity hadn't just found alien technology. It had triggered the restart of a system that predated both planets. A network designed to awaken once life reached a certain stage of awareness. And now, that threshold had been crossed. In the Arctic, the ice split open to reveal glowing metallic veins running deep into the planet's crust. In the Sahara, sandstorms exposed fragments of buried structures emitting faint magnetic waves. In the Mariana Trench, submarines recorded impossible geometric lights pulsing beneath the ocean floor. Every signal, every location, every pulse, all synchronized with the machine on Mars. And in that perfect rhythm, one truth became clear. The activation wasn't just happening around humanity. It was happening through it. Biometric data across the world began to show small but measurable changes. Increased heart coherence, heightened electromagnetic activity in human neural fields. The machine's pulse wasn't external anymore. It was resonating inside minds. And just as suddenly as it began, the global phenomenon stopped. The aurora faded, the vibration ceased, the world fell silent again. But deep beneath the Antarctic ice, The machine's hum continued, now steady, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat waiting for the next command. The silence that followed the activation was not peace, it was tension. An unspoken unease gripped the world, like the moment before a storm when the air becomes too still. Every government claimed control, every scientist claimed confusion, but no one, not even those who had triggered it, understood what had truly begun. In the weeks that followed, the world changed quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. Birds migrated. Off-season. AURORAS appeared at the equator. Compasses no longer aligned, perfectly north. And people, ordinary people, started dreaming in symbols, circles within circles, triangular constellations, pulsing lights beneath red skies. Psychologists called it mass resonance dreaming, but the phenomenon defied logic. The dreams shared identical details across languages, continents, and cultures. When researchers compared the symbols drawn by dreamers, they found something extraordinary. Each image matched the geometric waveforms of the Martian machine's final pulse. It was as if the machine had planted something, not just a signal, but an idea. The rise of the resonant. Within a month, isolated cases emerged, people who could sense electromagnetic shifts without instruments. They claimed they could feel the earth vibrating, hear frequencies that others could not. Most were dismissed as delusional, until EEG scans proved otherwise. Their brains exhibited synchronized bursts of gamma waves identical to the machine's frequency pattern. One of them, a young linguist from Chile named Mara Voss, began recording spontaneous symbols she said appeared in her mind during sleep. When cross-referenced, her drawings matched the spatial coordinates of the ancient Martian dig sites. Before they were ever made public. Dr. Rains, now under house arrest, was secretly contacted by Mara. In a recorded call, Mara whispered, "It's not just talking to me, Dr. Rains. It's remembering through me." Governments tried to suppress the growing phenomenon, labeling it neurological contamination. But the resonance kept spreading, not through contact, but through awareness itself. The more people learned about it, the more they began to dream. The machine wasn't transmitting information, it was rebuilding memory. Environmental distortions. Meanwhile, the planet began to respond in ways no model could predict. The magnetic poles began to shift faster than ever recorded. Entire power grids failed simultaneously across continents, but no damage could be found. Deep-sea microphones recorded harmonic sounds, singing frequencies, coming from the ocean floor. Satellite footage revealed massive circular patterns forming in deserts, forests, and even ice caps, like imprints, faint but deliberate, expanding outward in rhythm with the activation pulse. For a moment, humanity began to see a terrible beauty. The Earth itself was not resisting the change. It was participating. The collapse of Secret Island. Footage from within the Antarctic facility revealed something that broke the internet. The machine was no longer buried. It had risen several meters above the ice. Its surface shifted like liquid metal, rearranging itself into new geometries every few seconds around it. The snow had crystallized into perfect hexagonal patterns, fractals that repeated down to the molecular level. Dr. Rains's voice echoed through the leaked audio, trembling. "We thought it was a message from them. But what if it's a message from us? From what we used to be?" Government scrambled to restore order. The UN convened an emergency session to discuss planetary resonance containment. But as the session began, all communications blacked out. Screens across the globe, televisions, phones, even dark monitors, flickered to life on their own, displaying the same pulsating triangle within a circle. It pulsed 3 times, then stopped. Everywhere, humanity held its breath. The human shift. Days later, researchers discovered an even stranger effect. DNA samples taken from individuals exposed to the resonance showed faint structural rearrangements. Harmless, but precise. Sections of non-coding DNA, once labeled junk, had become active. When scientists mapped the sequences, they found recurring mathematical patterns, the same ones carved into the Martian ruins. The resonance wasn't just awakening memory. It was awakening design across the world. The resonant, as they came to be called, began to organize. They claimed to understand what was happening, that humanity wasn't facing an invasion, but a reconnection. They said the machine wasn't alien, it was ancestral, and as they spoke, more people began to hear the hum again, faint, constant, like the world's heartbeat sensing in unison. But not everyone welcomed it. Some saw it as a global infection, a loss of free will, a collapse of individuality. Militaries began mobilizing, believing the resonance was a form of psychological warfare, and quietly, beneath all the noise, the machine's hum deepened. The earth was no longer silent. It was listening. There's a saying among historians that every mystery is a story told backward, and so, when the hum deepened and the dreams grew clearer, scientists began to wonder, was the resonance really new, or had it been here all along? The answers came not from Mars this time, but from beneath Earth's oldest scars, the subterranean anomaly months after the Martian activation. Seismic sensors in Africa, Antarctica, and the Pacific registered rhythmic tremors, precise, periodic, and eerily similar to the Martian pulse pattern. When analyzed, the data revealed a shocking truth. These tremors originated from deep beneath ancient continental plates, structures that hadn't moved in billions of years. At first, geologists dismissed it as coincidence. Then, deep core resonance imaging, a technology used for oil exploration, captured something unmistakable: geometric voids, massive symmetrical chambers buried beneath tectonic crusts, shaped in fractal spirals and crystalline formations, far too organized to be natural. One chamber, beneath the Namib Desert, perfectly mirrored the layout of the Martian ruins, down to the smallest ratio. It's as if Mars wasn't the first prototype, Dr. Rains said in a recovered audio log. It's as if Earth was the continuation, the forgotten builder sentient. Texts from Sumeria to the Indus Valley, when re-examined through the lens of the resonance frequency, revealed hidden correlations. Words once thought to describe gods and stars now translated into vibration, signal, and return. The voice of creation, a recurring phrase across dozens of extinct languages, contained identical phonetic patterns to the activation tone recorded on Mars. Myths of celestial architects, of beings who descended to awaken the clay, were no longer dismissed as metaphors. They were records, encoded, memories of the first awakening. Archaeologists cross-referenced the timelines. The Martian civilization seemed to vanish around the same cosmic period. Earth's geological record shows an unexplained spike in atmospheric carbon and radiation, long before humans ever existed. Something, or someone, had crossed the void between worlds. The conclusion was impossible to deny. Mars was not humanity's inspiration. It was our origin point. The transfer theory began to form, one that united the anomalies, the DNA activation, and the resonance dreams. When Mars began to die, its atmosphere stripped, its core cooling, its last civilization faced extinction. But rather than perish, they encoded themselves, not in machines or stone, but in waveform patterns. Embedding their essence in genetic frequencies, they designed the resonance to survive the collapse, to seek a world capable of rebirth. Earth became that world. And when early life began to form here, those embedded frequencies, fragments of memory and design, fused into biological evolution. We were not created by them. We are them, adapted, forgotten, reborn. Every myth of gods descending from the sky, every story of first fire, every sudden leap in human consciousness, were not interventions from elsewhere, but awakenings of memory already within us. The records beneath the ice in Antarctica. As the resonance reached its peak, the machine shifted again. Its surface opened like petals of metal and ice, revealing an inner core pulsing with blue-white light. Inside were symbols, not words, but mathematical harmonics translated into sound when decoded. The sound produced a phrase in over 30 ancient languages simultaneously. The translation was simple, haunting. We did not build you to serve us. We built you to remember us. And through remembering, to become us again. Dr. Rains collapsed after hearing it. Her final entry in her digital log read, "They weren't our ancestors in the way we think. They were the previous iteration of us. And maybe This awakening isn't about returning to them. It's about finishing what they began. The red line connection. Then came the greatest revelation of all. A satellite scan revealed a vast electromagnetic structure stretching invisibly between Earth and Mars. A filament of energy, a red line, connecting both worlds at subspace resonance. It pulsed in rhythm with the Martian machine and the Earth's subterranean chambers. For centuries, humanity had looked at Mars and seen a dead world. But through the resonance, Mars was no longer silent. Its deserts shimmered faintly under the frequency, as though its surface remembered light. Earth and Mars were not separate civilizations. They were two halves of one consciousness, a system built to restart itself across worlds, across time. And now, the system was fully awake. The night the resonance reached full amplitude, the skies over every major observatory flickered, not with light, but with silence. For the first time in human history, the electromagnetic spectrum itself, from radio to X-ray, went dark for exactly 8.6 seconds. And then, the stars pulsed. Once, twice, three times. Not random, but patterned, a heartbeat across the void, as if the universe had exhaled and, for the briefest moment, remembered itself. The global awakening around the world. Strange phenomena unfolded simultaneously. In Tokyo, digital billboards glitched, their pixels forming spiral patterns, identical to those on the Martian obelisk. In Cairo, the Great Pyramid emitted a faint hum that made compasses spin uncontrollably. In Peru, atop the Nazca Plains, drones captured thin beams of ionized light connecting ancient geoglyphs to the upper atmosphere. No one could explain it. No government took credit, but every signal, every anomaly, converged toward a single frequency. The Martian resonance, when overlaid with brainwave patterns of people who had reported the echo dreams. The correlation was 99.7%. Every awakened dreamer across Earth, millions of them, began to hear the same phrase echoing inside their thoughts. The bridge is open, the pulse and the light in orbit. Satellites detected something extraordinary. Mars itself was brightening. Its surface albedo, the measure of reflected light, increased by nearly 20%. The polar caps shimmered, releasing plumes of water vapor, an electromagnetic discharge. And then, as if responding to an ancient signal, one of Mars' moons, Phobos, began to vibrate. Its orbit shifted by less than a millimeter. But the data was unmistakable. It wasn't a moon. It was a reactor. Built, engineered, waiting. The resonance wasn't activating a single machine. It was synchronizing a planetary network. Every ancient ruin, every hidden chamber beneath Earth, every pulse beneath the ice, began to hum in unison. The same harmonic note spread through the oceans, through the crust, through the bones of every living being. Animals grew restless, migratory. Birds flew in perfect spirals above magnetic poles. Whales changed their songs, aligning their calls with the same deep rhythm. Even tectonic plates shifted subtly, forming a spiral pattern across fault lines, one that perfectly matched the Martian geometry. It was as if the planet itself was joining the signal. The human response at the United Nations, a meeting of world leaders, descended into chaos. Some demanded immediate shutdowns of all signal-based technologies. Others argued that resistance was impossible, that the event wasn't man-made, and thus could not be stopped. Dr. Rains appeared via secure transmission, her voice shaking. "You're missing the point. This isn't invasion, it's inheritance. Mars isn't coming for us. It's calling us home, within ours." Power grids across 14 countries surged with unexplained current, clean, limitless, self-sustaining. The resonance had begun converting electromagnetic noise into energy. The more humans panicked, the stronger it grew, as though it fed on attention, emotion, consciousness. And yet, those who surrendered to the sound, those who listened instead of resisted, reported something else entirely. Peace, a deep, almost sacred calm. Visions of red deserts turning green. Of oceans on Mars reflecting sunlight again. The ascension moment in the 7th day of the resonance. Mars filled the night sky, not larger, but clearer. Its outlines sharpened unnaturally. as if distance itself had thinned. Telescopes recorded moving light, structures illuminating one by one across the surface. Like a city waking from hibernation. Then came the pulse. A single burst of energy erupted from Phobos, spreading through space in a spiral of red and gold light. When it reached Earth, the auroras ignited across every latitude, painting the entire planet in shimmering crimson hues. In that light, the human mind changed. Billions experienced simultaneous flashes, memories that weren't theirs, visions of cities beneath Martian suns, of crystalline towers vibrating with energy. Of beings not made of flesh, but light and code and thought. For those few seconds, humanity remembered itself, not as individuals, not as nations, but as fragments of a civilization that had crossed the void long ago. "We are not the children of Earth," a voice whispered across every frequency. "We are the architects of Mars, reborn through memory and time. The cycle is complete. The circle has reopened, the great convergence." Then, silence again. The hum faded, Mars dimmed, the skies returned to normal. But nothing was the same. Every magnetic reading on Earth had shifted. Compasses pointed not north, but toward a new alignment, directly at Mars. And those who had heard the voice reported a change in perception. They could feel electromagnetic fields, see faint traces of ultraviolet light, sense the heartbeat of the planet beneath their feet. It wasn't the end of humanity. It was an upgrade. Something ancient had been reawakened within us, a layer of mind we never knew existed. And somewhere, deep below the surface, the buried chambers pulsed one last time, then went silent, waiting for the next stage. The world never truly went back to normal. Governments called it the resonance event. Scientists still argued whether it was natural, artificial, or divine. But for those who had felt it, the pulse, the whisper, the memory, no explanation could fit the shape of what had happened. It wasn't just a sound. It was a return. The calm after the awakening. In the months that followed, human behavior shifted subtly. Cities became quieter. The constant hum of digital noise softened, as though the world itself was taking a breath after a long exhale. People began to dream in unison again, not of the event, but of red horizons, to moons and blue storms rolling over Martian valleys. Astronomers noticed that Mars' atmospheric data was evolving. Cloud patterns that should have dissipated lingered. Surface dust storms began forming, perfect fractal spirals, repeating the same mathematical geometry found in ancient human architecture. It was as if Mars had become a mirror, reflecting us back to ourselves. The forgotten and the remembered in remote places, the Andes, the Himalayas, the Gobi, strange structures began emerging from the soil. Stone pillars aligned with constellations unseen for millennia. They weren't being built, they were being unearthed. When studied, the mineral composition didn't match Earth. They were Martian basalt. Scientists couldn't explain how rock native to another planet could have fused within Earth's mantle, but the resonance had rewritten more than just memory. It had rewritten matter. Every analysis led to the same impossible conclusion. Mars and Earth shared an ancient exchange. The two worlds were once one system, a twin civilization separated by cataclysm, destined to reconnect when the frequency aligned again. And we, humanity, were the bridge. The voice in the static. Months later, radio astronomers detected a faint repeating pulse, not from Mars this time, but from the empty space between the planets, a carrier wave, constant and gentle, like a heartbeat carried through the void. When decoded, it formed a single phrase, looping endlessly across all frequencies. Awakening complete, awaiting return. But return of what? A species, a signal, a memory, or perhaps consciousness itself? Dr. Rains, who had vanished after the final broadcast, sent one last encrypted message before disappearing completely. They were never gods, they were us. And we were never human, not entirely. Every world we touch, we leave an echo. Mars was the first, Earth is the next. The final understanding now, years later. The red planet shines a little brighter in the night sky, not as a warning, but as a promise. The hum of the resonance still lingers beneath the noise of the world, faint, but there, like a heartbeat beneath silence. Some nights, when the sky is clear and the air is still, you can almost hear it, a low, distant vibration, calling across the void. And if you listen closely enough, you might feel it in your chest, that same ancient rhythm, pulsing in time with your heart, because maybe, after all the science and speculation, after all the data and disbelief, it was never about Mars. It was about memory. About the universe remembering itself through us. We are the echoes of forgotten civilizations, the continuation of something so vast it cannot die, only transform. Every world, every cycle, every rebirth is just another breath in the cosmic body of creation. And so, as the stars wheel overhead, as silence stretches across time once more, a question lingers, not to be answered, but to be felt. What if civilizations existed on Mars before Earth? And what if we are the proof that they still do? Silence stretches across the crimson plains of Mars. The storm that once roared with fury has quieted to a mournful hum, the kind that feels alive, whispering through hollow ruins and shattered monoliths. Inside the buried chamber, the same one where it all began, faint blue light flickers on the walls, painting symbols that no one alive can understand. The human research vessel, Astraeus, floats above Mars, orbiting in the same position where it first received the pulse signal months ago. The crew watches the planet in uneasy silence. No one speaks. No one needs to, because the last transmission from the surface still plays in the background. A voice neither human nor entirely alien. It says just one thing, in perfect, calm English: we remember. And now, so will you? Dr. Amani sits in her observation chair, her reflection caught against the red curve of Mars. Her eyes are red, from sleepless nights and the realization that this was never a discovery. It was a reawakening. The stars drift silently above, ancient witnesses to everything that has ever been, and everything that will come again. Somewhere between Mars and Earth, an invisible frequency hums through the void, neither mechanical nor natural, something older, patient, waiting. The voice begins to narrate, calm, soft, and filled with quiet awe. What if life is not a beginning, but a rhythm? What if civilizations rise not to conquer, but to remember? The scene unfolds, fragments of two worlds, Mars' shattered obelisks half buried in dust, and Earth's glittering cities rebuilding in the aftermath, flicker back and forth like mirrors reflecting each other's memories. Between them, a thin thread of light connects, pulsing gently, carrying whispers of forgotten times. The narration continues. Perhaps the story of Mars was never about another species. Perhaps it was always about us, about what we used to be, what we became, and what we will forget again. Soft music swells, low, haunting piano mixed with the distant echo of wind. The camera dives deep into the oceans of Earth, showing the colossal metallic structure awakening fully. Lights igniting one by one, in patterns that match the Martian glyphs. A final surge of energy moves through the planet, subtle but unstoppable. No explosions, no chaos, just awakening. In the sky above, auroras ripple across both hemispheres, patterns shaped like fractals, spirals, and eyes watching from the clouds. People look up, in every city, every country, not in fear, but in silence, as if some part of them remembers what this means. Every world keeps its echoes. The narrator whispers, Mars, Earth, perhaps even beyond. The cycle doesn't end, it only sleeps, waiting for a mind to listen. The camera pans out slowly, both planets now glowing faintly, their signals intertwined like the pulse of a single heart beating across light years. A final message appears across the screen. In quiet white text, we were never the first. We will not be the last, but we are the echo. The sound fades. Only the heartbeat of the universe remains. End of documentary script. What if civilizations existed on Mars before Earth? The silence after the light was absolute. Earth, breathing, trembling, alive, had crossed an invisible threshold. The energy that once belonged to Mars now hummed beneath our feet, not as destruction, but as memory reactivated. Somewhere beneath the Pacific, the last pulse from the awakened structure sent a final signal, not to the sky this time, but to something beneath time itself, a deep, Resonant tone filled the magnetic field of the planet, undetectable to human ears, but felt by every living cell. Plants bent toward it. Whales altered their songs. Even dreams began to synchronize. The narration continues, slow, deliberate, reflective. What if consciousness itself is the oldest traveler, not bound to flesh or form, but moving from one world to another, through extinction and rebirth? As the world adjusts to the impossible, scientists and mystics stand on equal ground. Every screen across the globe flickers simultaneously, showing a pattern, a moving spiral that matches the Martian glyphs seen decades ago. No one knows what triggered it. No one claims control, but everywhere, from children gazing at night skies to ancient monks meditating in silence, humanity feels the same thing. Recognition, cinematic imagery flows, deserts glowing under auras, deep ocean vents pulsing with blue fire, the ancient Martian ruins beginning to shimmer through satellite feeds, as if phase shifting between past and present. Maybe Mars was never destroyed, the narrator whispers. Maybe it was paused, waiting for us to remember the code, waiting for us to awaken. And as those words echo, a blinding flash sweeps across the Martian surface. Rovers, silent for years, suddenly reboot. Their cameras, now self-activated, turn toward Olympus Mons. At the summit, where ancient dust storms have raged for centuries, something vast begins to move. A structure, colossal, circular, emerges like a breathing relic, its form changing, adapting. The markings are the same as Earth's newly lit structures, proof that the two worlds were never separate. They were twin instruments in a grand cosmic design. Back on Earth, the global auroras converge into a single beam, piercing upward, aligning with Mars in perfect celestial harmony. The two planets hum as one. We were never meant to be alone, the voice says. We were meant to awaken each other. And then, silence again. But this silence is different. It feels alive. Like the universe itself is holding its breath. The final shot zooms out, past the solar system, past the nebulae, into the infinite dark. In that void, countless faint lights flicker, each representing another world, another echo, another civilization waiting to awaken. A heartbeat, deep, distant, reverberates once more. The story of Mars and Earth, the narrator concludes softly, is not about where life began, but about where it continues, endlessly, beautifully, again and again. Fade to black. Text on screen. The cycle continues. Soft ambient tones fade in, a mix of wind, faint whispers, and a deep hum that mirrors the rhythm of a heartbeat, leading the audience gently into silence.